Welcome to the Bookworm Duo, where we explore a variety of books. Let's get started.
Sounds good to me.
Today, we're diving deep into Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney.
Okay.
Have you read this one?
Oh, yeah, I have. This one was good.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So this book starts with Grady Green. He's a successful author, and his wife, Abby, has been missing for like a year.
Right away, you get this feeling of grief hanging over him.
Yeah.
And then his agent, Kitty, pops in and she's like, I've got the perfect escape for you. Go to this remote island in Scotland.
Okay.
It's called Amberley, and it used to belong to like this famous author, Charles Whittaker. So it's almost like Grady's stepping into another writer's world, you know?
Interesting. So this island, it's not just your typical like vacation spot.
No, not at all.
It's actually described as being shaped like a broken heart, which is kind of symbolic, right?
No, for sure. Yeah.
And you can only get there by ferry.
Twice a week, if the weather cooperates, that is.
Okay, so you're kind of stuck there once you get there.
Pretty much. Oh, and no cell service. Feeney really drives home that sense of isolation.
I see. So who does Grady meet when he gets to this island?
Well, there's this handful of interesting locals, you know, like the ferry woman, Sandy. She's also the island's sheriff.
Okay.
And then there's Cora from the corner shop. She always wears green. And you can't forget the King sisters. They run the only pub on the island, the Stumble Inn.
The Stumble Inn.
Yep.
Okay. Sounds like quite the cast of characters.
Definitely.
So Grady is supposed to be using this time to write his next book.
Right.
But he finds something else in the cabin that belonged to the previous author, this manuscript.
Yeah, it's called Book 10, Whittaker's unpublished work.
Okay.
And Grady gets so absorbed in this manuscript that he basically shuts himself off from the world even more than before. It's like he's escaping into Whittaker's story, almost forgetting about his own grief for a while.
I see.
Makes you wonder if he's running away from something.
Yeah. So is this when things start to get strange?
Definitely. Grady starts experiencing all these weird things.
Like what?
Well, he finds random newspaper clippings and he starts hearing voices.
Spooky.
And then there's this red harmonica. It keeps appearing and disappearing like out of thin air.
Okay, that's just creepy.
Feeney really knows how to build the suspense. You're like, is Grady losing his mind or is there something truly strange happening on this island?
Right. It's like, is this all in his head or are these real occurrences?
Exactly. And then there are all these little details about the islanders that just feel off.
Like what?
Well, Midge and Sandy, they wear these identical silver thistle rings. And remember Cora from the shop, she's obsessed with the color green. And Mary, one of the King sisters at the pub, she only wants to sell you lamb. Like no other food, just lamb.
That's so odd.
Right. It's like Feeney is scattering these little clues. Something's not right on Amberley.
It's like she's setting us up for something better.
Totally. And then boom, we shift to Abby's perspective.
Oh, okay.
It's just a week before she vanished.
So we see what's happening with her before she disappeared.
Yeah, and we see she's having a tough time, struggling in her marriage, going to therapy, and she starts talking about some pretty heavy stuff from her past. Trauma, you know?
Really makes you think about how little we can actually know about the people we're closest to.
Totally.
We see this different side of Abby, not just the missing wife, from Grady's point of view.
Right, and that's when Feeney throws this huge curveball at us.
What happens?
Grady's driving his car and he hits a woman.
Oh, no.
But here's the thing. She looks and sounds exactly like Abby.
Oh, wow.
It's like his worst nightmare and his biggest hope all rolled into one.
Yeah, I can imagine. So is it actually her?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The woman claims she doesn't remember him at all, doesn't remember anything about him.
So is she really Abby? Did she lose her memory? Or is this some kind of cruel trick?
It's a total mystery. And of course, Grady's got to figure it out. He follows her to this pottery studio. Get this, it's called Beautiful Ugly.
Beautiful Ugly. Okay, I see what she did there.
Right. So he learns about this new life she's built for herself, but he can't shake the feeling that something's off.
Like what makes him suspicious?
Little things, you know? The way she picks at her nails, the way her brown eyes sometimes seem to flash blue. It all makes him question everything he thought he knew about Abby.
It's like Feeney is messing with our heads, making us doubt whether Grady is a reliable narrator.
Totally. Is he holding on to a fantasy, or is there more to this Abby than meets the eye?
Good question. And while all this is going on, Grady's also learning more about the island itself,
Oh,
right?
yeah, it's got this dark history, a real tragedy. 13 children drowned at this place called Darkside Cave.
Oh, no.
And Sandy, the fairy woman, her own daughter was one of the children who died.
So this event has deeply affected everyone on the island.
Absolutely. It explains why the islanders are so wary of outsiders, especially men. It's like they've built up these walls to protect themselves from more pain.
It makes sense.
And then there's those newspaper clippings Grady keeps finding. They were written by Abby, but get this. They're about events that happened after she disappeared.
Oh, wow. That doesn't make any sense.
Right. And then he finds another article, this one about Charles Whitaker's death, the author whose cabin he's staying in. And guess who wrote that one?
Don't tell me, Abby.
Abby. It's like the puzzle pieces are starting to come together, but the picture they're forming is still blurry.
Yeah, and then there's that letter from Kitty, the one that hints at something really disturbing.
Yeah, that Grady might have something to do with Abby's disappearance. Like, he's not just a grieving husband, he might actually be involved in her disappearance.
Wow, talk about a twist.
Right. We're so focused on finding Abby, and then suddenly the attention shifts to Grady and his potential guilt.
Okay, so what happens next? Does Grady confront Kitty? Does he try to find out more about what happened to Abby?
Well, that's where we're going to leave it for now.
Oh, come on.
We'll have to wait until part 2 of our deep dive into Beautiful Ugly to unravel those mysteries.
Okay. I guess I can wait.
Hey.
But I'm definitely on the edge of my seat now.
Me too.
This book is full of surprises.
It sure is, and we're not done yet.
So we left off with Grady basically trapped on this island of women.
Oh, yeah, and his own agent, Kitty, is the one who orchestrated the whole thing, right?
Good, correct?
To expose his abusive behavior, I mean, it's wild.
Yeah, it's intense. And we're left wondering, what's going to happen to him now?
But before we go there, I wanted to talk about those buried lovers that Grady and Abby found.
Oh, yeah. When they were renovating their house, 2 sets of clothes and, like, shoes and jewelry all buried together.
Under the floorboards. It was creepy, but kind of romantic in a way. Like this testament to a love that couldn't be broken.
It is, yeah. Like, even in death, they're together. And, you know, that idea of, like, these really strong connections, it kind of pops up throughout the whole book. It's like those buried lovers are a hint at the kind of bond that all the women on Amberley have formed.
Okay, so the island itself is like this, like, hidden love. This secret society. Right, yeah. It's like they've hidden themselves away from the world and created their own society with its own rules and rituals. And you can't forget about that red harmonica either.
Oh, yeah. The one that belonged to Sandy's daughter who drowned in that accident.
It is, yeah. The one that keeps popping up everywhere. At first, it seems like a small detail. But as you keep reading, you realize it has a much deeper meaning.
It does, for Sandy especially.
It's a symbol of her loss, you know? This constant reminder of the pain she's carrying with her. It's like the island's past is this, like, haunting presence that no one can escape.
Speaking of haunting,
Yeah.
we have to talk about the Children of the Mist.
They're like this embodiment of the island's collective trauma, you know? The fact that those 13 children drowned, it left this wound on Amberley that never really healed, and they add to this creepy, eerie atmosphere of the whole book, and they really mess with Grady's head too.
I mean, I got chills when we learned that the so-called singing sands aren't actually singing.
Oh, right.
But it's the sound of the children crying. That's messed up.
Yeah. Alice Feeney, she's a master at using those kinds of details to, like, really make you feel unsettled. Like, you start to question what's real and what's just Grady's perception, you know, since he's slowly losing it. But underneath all of that, there's this question about, like, how far would you go to protect the people you love?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I mean, Kitty, she goes to these, like, crazy extremes to protect Abby, even if it means manipulating Grady and basically ruining his life. And all the women on Amberley, especially Sandy, they've built this entire system to keep themselves safe.
Especially for men, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really complex situation, morally speaking.
It is.
On the one hand, you can totally see why they feel the need to do all this. They want safety and they want to be left alone. But then, you know, they're still manipulating people.
Yeah.
Controlling them, even if they think they're doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah, I can see that.
And that's where Grady gets caught in the crossfire. He's stuck on this island. He's forced to write for these women, like a prisoner in this, like, weird, twisted paradise. But it turns out he's not the only one who's been living a lie.
You're talking about Kitty, right? When we find out that she used to be Abby Goldman, the journalist who wrote those articles, my mind was blown.
It's like the whole story flips on its head. She's not just this tough agent anymore. She's this woman with her own baggage, her own connection to the island that we didn't see coming.
She created this whole new identity, like she was trying to bury her past.
Yeah.
But that past, it's tied to Charles Whittaker, the author, and to Amberly, too.
Yeah.
And even after all that, she's still fiercely loyal to Abby. She'll do anything to protect her. Like, she's the villain and the hero all at the same time.
Alice Feeney, she loves to create these characters that make you question everything. You don't know if you should love them or hate them.
I'm kind of getting that vibe. So what happens to Grady in the end? Does he ever get off the island? Does he ever find out what really happened to Abby?
Well, that's what we'll find out in the final part of our deep dive into Beautiful Ugly.
Oh, no. You're going to leave us hanging again.
You got to come back for part 3. Trust me, the ending is going to stay with you for a while. It's pretty intense and thought-provoking.
Last time, we left Grady stuck on this island.
Huh.
And it seems like he's going to be stuck there for a while, forced to write for the women who, well, basically trapped him there.
It's a dark situation. What happens to him?
It's really chilling what happens to him. It's like poetic justice almost. He wanted to escape his past, right? Find some peace through writing. But instead, both of those things end up imprisoning him.
You're right. It's like he became, well, a product. His writing is what's fueling the island, keeping it hidden. And it's all payback for how he treated Abby.
Yeah. The women of Amberley created this system that punishes Grady, but also, like, uses him at the same time. Really makes you think about justice. Like, can revenge ever really bring satisfaction? What a question. And what about Abby? I mean, we know she's alive, right? Living with a new family. It's like she doesn't even remember who she was before. But is that amnesia real? Or is it like a coping mechanism to deal with all the trauma?
It's one of those things that just sticks with you after reading this book. She's so strong, you know, to have gone through all that and come out the other side. But you can't help but wonder if she'll ever get those memories back. If she'll ever want to face what happened to her.
It really makes you think. It's like she's been given a second chance on this island, a fresh start. But it cost her, well, her old life. It makes you wonder about identity. Can we ever really escape our past?
Absolutely. It's like two sides of the same coin. Abby's found peace, but Grady, he's wrestling with all this guilt. He keeps seeing her everywhere, in the faces of the women on the island, in the forest, even in the designs of the pottery. It's like she's haunting him.
His mind's coming apart at the seams throughout the whole book. His reality is blurring. And it's a stark contrast to Abby, who seems to be healing.
Yeah. Trauma and guilt, they leave a mark. Grady's in prison, but it's not just physical, it's mental too. His own demons are holding him captive.
And then there's Kitty, the puppet master behind it all. This woman driven by love for her goddaughter, but also by revenge. It's so complicated, it makes you think about your own judgments.
Totally. Is she a hero? I mean, she protected Abby, but she also manipulated Grady, took away his freedom. Feeney doesn't give you an easy answer. She wants you to grapple with that, to look inward and examine your own sense of right and wrong.
Beautiful, ugly. It's a book that sticks with you. It's twisted. It's about love and loss and betrayal, about how secrets have this power, this hold over us. But it's also about healing, about how messy human relationships can be, and about how nothing is ever just black and white.
It makes you think. It challenges everything you thought you knew, and it stays with you long after you finish the last page.
Thanks for joining us. Subscribe for more bookish adventures and hit that like button if you enjoyed the ride. Don't forget to share the knowledge, spread the word.